Could we be entering an altcoin surge today? We'll break it down for you, get a full analysis. You don't want to miss it. It's going to be a good one. Let's go into it. I do want to thank our sponsor, and this is BTCC. This is one of the places that you guys can go out and get to going on trading. And the way that you can do this is assortment of strategies, but swing trading, you can do some copy trading, a lot available here on this platform. Use our link. It's going to give you a 10% bonus on your first time deposit. It also has a whole layer of additional benefits that you guys will get by just using our link. And this is one of the strategies that we've seen that works in terms of very volatile moves, whether you're going high or long or short on a token. Always, in my position is go very light on leverage if at all. But the key here is it gives you a lot of opportunity to go out there and earn some money with, of course, what's happening over on trading. So check out BTCC and use our link. Let's go over to a couple of points I want to hit on. And before I do that, I want to bring in our trader today. Of course, that is Paul coming in from none other than DataDash. How are you?
Doing well, Paul. Honored to be back. Happy December.
But we have potentially an altcoin season that could be brewing here. And there's a lot of people that have been pointing at this. You're one of them, is looking at how this structures around the next move in the cycle, some of which could be 2026. Another thing that's playing right now, of course, is we're seeing some resistance on Tether. This, of course, dominance also from stablecoins could be moving into some other areas of the market, which is what we anticipate. And then you have this whole suggestion that we are seeing a massive shift over from where taxes and also tariffs are hitting. This, of course, was your tweet right here, a bold claim, but the sustainability of the federal revenue is far deeper question than the headlines. This was referencing the idea of Trump saying no income tax. So I don't know if this could ever happen. I'm not sure how they'd even put this together. We'll play a couple of clips that kind of gets into a few points. Treasury Secretary Bessent also said that he didn't believe tariffs were a tax. Then you have a clip coming in from none other than the Commerce Secretary, which is Howard Lutnick, breaking down where are job losses actually occurring. And then we're going to break down some tokens, but I want to kind of paint this macro picture for you guys. Let's go to this clip.
Because today we learned that the private sector is losing jobs. Small business getting hit really hard. Negative number in front of ADP. And one of the reasons that they cite is tariffs. So do you worry about some of the economic fallout here as these tariffs really take hold?
No, it's not tariffs. Remember, you had the Democratic shutdown, right? And what do you think happens to small business? The people who do business with the U.S. government, they know they're not getting paid, so they sort of slow down their projects. And then remember, as you deport people, that's going to suppress private job numbers of small businesses.
And even if you don't think that that's happening, I mean, factory activity shrinking in November by the most in 4 months. We got a manufacturing report this week, and in that survey, they did cite tariffs as a reason. I mean, this was a sector that was supposed to be helped the most by what you're doing on the trade front.
You made us a graph, and I want to show it. It's highlighting the trade war, the tariffs, Liberation Day, to where we are today. Explain this.
The important thing I'm showing here is the goods producing part of the economy, and I'm focusing on goods that it's been falling. The number of people with jobs in factories or construction or other goods producing parts of the economy, that part of the economy is in recession, and the turning point just happens to be Liberation Day. So for all of us who are having to get by with a higher cost of living because of the tariffs, we were promised that that was so that we could rescue the manufacturing sector. As you and I have discussed many times, when you put tariffs on steel and aluminium, you actually making it harder for American factories to do business. And so you're seeing an incoherent policy having quite unexpected effects.
All right, so Paul, this hits on a few points. Of course, Trump is kind of on his heels right now because he's trying to deal with the realization that tariffs are causing job loss. We're seeing now tariff causing inflation. The real question is can he pull it off? If he were to pull something like this off, it would be huge. The question, how they do it is going to be, I think, the bigger scenario. Do you think that the market has affected traders in general of just being able to inject liquidity in? Obviously, people that are in crypto, they're here for a reason. They're trying to make their way in. Do you think it's really suppressed what's happening in crypto?
I think that the crypto market has, evolved into something that's a little bit more in line with the stock market now, as we've broken into the higher market caps and things of that nature. And the days of just, again, back in 2017, you only had an $800 million market cap, so there was very big amount, and there's only X amount of coins. So that was really the biggest piece. Is there was a lot less coins, a lot more money compared. Now that's outweighed a bit. Plus, you have the flattening of when an asset such as Bitcoin, for example, or Ethereum or Solana, they're not going to be as astronomically exponential moves coming in, because they're going to be a little bit more, coasting. So is that a part of it? It could be. It's one of those things that I think everybody thinks back to when we wanted the institutions to be a part of the market, and that would, inflate these numbers, which by and large it has, for Bitcoin, if you look at it, but, for the rest of the market, it hasn't necessarily brought in that liquidity that we wanted to see in altcoins. But yeah, so I think it all is just like a snowball effect that is just kind of all rolled into one that's, affecting it in a piece. But probably not like the only reason that's like affecting the liquidity and hurting traders in the moment. And, it's just, I think it also forces traders to kind of level up. It's not just so simple anymore to just look for a very, easy trend line and, go off of that. You kind of have to evolve like anything else. You have to get better. And when everybody's looking at one thing, obviously it becomes less, the probability of it coming down is gonna dwindle. So I think it's just a mixture of a lot of things all beat into one.
Well, and I think the strategy, you hit on a couple of points there, is we have seen institutional moves that have really kind of jettisoned both ETH and Bitcoin, obviously through the ETF markets. So we're now starting to see that seep over into things like Solana, XRP, and other ETFs that have recently launched, which now have access to institutional liquidity coming into the market. But you also have kind of this unwind that appears to be happening with MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy announced their establishment of a $1.4 billion, that's right guys, I said USD reserve. So Mike, what do you make of this? MicroStrategy is putting money into dollars instead of Bitcoin?
Yeah. The only thing about that I could say is that, MicroStrategy for the longest time here has been a overbuyer, right? Like he's bought, it doesn't matter if it was with 60K back in 2021, 3K, 5K, 10K, 100K, he's been averaging in pretty well. But with something here now too, that we're at a position where it's in the $100,000 range, it's not unheard of to just kind of be hedging your bets a little bit there, to where if we did see a sizable pullback here, or if he has to bail out a little bit of his own shareholders in some degree, or if the market, does have a little pullback, the stock market too, it's not, totally unheard of to just have that cash position now. But when you look at the bigger picture of MicroStrategy and what he's been doing over the big the years, it's still pretty much a huge Bitcoin bull. They're like overall like with that at hand. So
well, one thing he's doing is he's starting to create a lot of these instruments, and this is one strike that he calls out there STRC. This is getting another rate hike in terms of these dividends that are being paid monthly. This is a 10.75% monthly. I mean, that's better than what we're seeing on some of the best lending rates over on Aave right now. And the real question is where is this money coming from? So obviously they're generating it through these instruments, but at some point, Paul, this is going to be bringing money in to pay dividends out. And you know what that sounds like when you're bringing other people's money in to pay other people. It gets a little bit dicey for sure. But it also pushes us into, is he setting up crazy like a fox where we could be moving into a potential bull run coming back into 2026? Here was Grayscale saying they think that Bitcoin's highs in 2026 could be coming, and they're dismissing the 4-year cycle. What are your opinions right now on Bitcoin?
When I see a headline like that, it doesn't make me feel great, because usually, just in the sense of like, a big headline like that coming out is usually in a reverse indicator, right? So, but I will say that has been my overall thesis for quite some time here, is that the 4-year cycle, especially ever since 2021, and not just because of how that ended, it was in line with the overall 18 to 20 year cycle that I had in mind for this coming up time frame as the end of this decade. And also just the setup at hand for Bitcoin, the setup at hand that we've covered several times. All these are macro outlooks on Ethereum versus BTC, the Ethereum setups, the Bitcoin dominant, like all these things are just kind of aligned with another year of potential upside for the market. That all lines up with like the end of 2026. So for me, I do agree with that statement. Just like I said, it makes me a little nervous as we're getting into it that we're starting to see some headlines like that coming out too. So but we'll see how it goes. But with the information at hand, I do agree to that with that statement too.
Okay, so when you look at the chart, because obviously we had one of our biggest candles for this year since May coming back in, people are a little bit fickle on where they think we're going from here. Some people still saying that we could be trapped inside a falling cycle here with Bitcoin. Some people think this is a reversal. Where do you stand on Bitcoin in terms of the chart? Are we on a reversal?
So we were just discussing obviously MicroStrategy, and we had this huge move down here, and as well as the Bitcoin pullback. Let's see if that lines up. Actually, it doesn't. So Bitcoin still kind of made new highs around this window of time, and MicroStrategy came down. The two of these were pretty tied for the most part for a long time here. But I wanted to highlight that just as if looking at, I've only had a few levels marked out here, and one of these is a yearly volume target that we left behind from 2024. Right. And just looking chart wise, very likely to come back down to it. So in the sense of just looking at the information at hand here, the move down on MicroStrategy, while it was, aggressive and everything like that, it was pretty technical to say the least. And really it could get as deep as 141 and still kind of be okay. But we're now doing the opposite here, where almost every time frame we do this exact same flip flop, where you get this huge burst up. 1 year, get a little consolidation for a few months, you come back and fill some inefficiencies. Now we've had the second part of this year be a down move. As we walk into next year, you can see here I have highlighted, or if you don't know, this is a volume target basically that we're going to have now in place. The same exact one that we have here is going to generate now back at 338 for the year of 2026. There's a couple areas right here that are in line with that too. But even if we're just looking solely at just this one right here, I mean the move back for MicroStrategy to see that, as well as probably lining up with a gold pocket Fibonacci retracement, if I had to guess, it sure does. Is something that I could see definitely happening in the charts here for MicroStrategy, just to kind of put that one to bed there as we head into 2026 as well. So, and that's a pretty big move, Paul. I mean, you're talking 70, 85% if we see it. Obviously, there's no guarantee,
obviously
but
that would happen if Bitcoin was on an accelerant. So with that being said, where do you see Bitcoin moving into 26?
Let's take a look there too. So, Bitcoin's got the pullback here. Like I said, we all know from October instead of July, like in MicroStrategy, pulled back about 36% now, which for me, I was targeting this 130 area again to just kind of quickly overview that was going to be the next most likely level for us to see the next 30 to 40% retracement from. And it was coming in around the week of the September 29th, which was October the 6th. So this whole thing is almost pretty much spent. The only thing I would say about this is that there is one more aggressive target of this. As long as we're remaining below 93K, just kind of have to be aware of it. You can get that last little flush down to set the tariff lows, basically. But if we start to flip 93,000, Paul, so again, this is a huge setup from tariff low, inauguration day, carry trade low last year, inauguration day, tariff lows, and then just let's call it the government shutdown, I guess, where if any kind of news was wrapped around it, four-year cycle high, right? Everybody's fearful of that right now. But this move, target 1, target 2 met pretty aggressively. We're on a weekly time frame. If we get back above that 93K, this setup is completely spent. And from here, Paul, just zooming out and looking at this in the sense of just higher lows and higher highs across the way, you can look into this as, 5 waves and things like that. So this is actually, to me, I'm actually targeting for at least a pushback up into the 160 area as we go into next year. Again, predicated off of like us getting back above that 93,000, which we're battling really hard with right now. So 93 is that line in the sand, and then 160 for me is where I see Bitcoin heading next year, which doesn't sound grand because we've already made it to 126. Right. But in theory, this is where we actually see the shift now to where like the altcoins and even if it's, just the top ones, right? Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, and all these others to get that really big move, or a big move. Doesn't have to be like, 10x or 20x, but that's where I could see it. Bitcoin gets a push up, MicroStrategy gets a push up. The altcoins actually perform pretty well in a year when everybody thinks it's going to be a bear market. Everybody's dumped all their positions. I think we're setting up for something like that.
Well, and I think that's the key, because we're still putting out polls left and right, and the amount of sentiment, even though it is still very positive, at least I am starting to see it crack a little bit. So I think we might be entering a capitulation phase, to your point, is where we see a reversal into that. I don't know where that's going to put Bitcoin. I'm curious where it's going to put Ethereum, because you've got a very unique timing happening right now. We're 3 hours away from Fusaka. And remember, the last time we had a major upgrade, Pectra, Ethereum had a nice response to that. When you look at Ethereum's chart right now, first of all, do you like it going into the end of the year, or do you think we'll see something more explosive early next?
Glad you asked, Paul. Glad you asked. So the last upgrade, which was on May 7th, Pectra, I'm not sure if you and I were doing our dance back in that time. Oh yeah, this is when we were first did the Ethereum outlook and whatever. So there are two things here, right? So we had the upgrade coming, and that alone is usually not just enough. Sometimes we get all these great news events. XRP is a really good example. You get all these partnerships, you get all these things that sometimes just doesn't move the price, at least right away. The ETFs might come out and the price actually dumps a little bit. But this was a time where we actually had a really nice move. However, what we had before that was what I call the stairs down, and was looking for what we call the elevator up. And at the time, you have to look for another reason behind that, other than, okay, we just have some slow moves down. Was there another setup at hand here? And there was actually a bullish harmonic, which is a sequence of Fibonacci's that completed down here. And I'm bringing all this up because we had that occur. We had a little bit of a burst up. We had the upgrade occur right here, and then that kind of fulfilled it. We had two major targets here, which aren't like, end all be all. It's got to reverse. This is just when you're down here, I can target up to this level, which is like, a nice thing to be aware of here. And in the same setting now, where we're looking at Fusaka, which actually we're getting the pump right as we're speaking now, we have the exact same setup, Paul. So if you're looking at the price action, I just covered this little, down step here. What do we have here is basically the staircase down. Potential here for the elevator up, but you need something else on top of that. So I already labeled this one the Fusaka chart, and we have yet again a bullish harmonic. It's a different one here. It's called the butterfly, and completes right into that gold pocket little box that we were looking at just a week ago, even, or just last few weeks here. $2,500, could have got as deep as that. But we've gotten a bounce out. We've gotten a back test here, and we have two similar target levels here. One's not that exciting. It's, $3,400, but the main one comes all the way back up to 4,000, Paul. And I think that's where we could see within, I don't know if we're going to get there before the end of this month, because now that's, the end of the year here. But we could very well see a similar situation where this is a very bullish setup. It doesn't have to stop here. I would just be aware that, don't overlook these areas, because if we do get to these areas, we could get a pullback and all that good stuff. But this is a very good setup here to get that bullish continuation, Paul. And I'm looking for same thing next year, a really sizable move out of Ethereum, breaching the all-time high yet again and heading up to that, $5,000-$7,000 territory, and potentially even more than that.
Well, one thing you got to consider right now, especially with this Fusaka upgrade that's coming, I mean, this is an example of what's happening right now as we're kind of talking about this. There is a lot of working parts here that is going to, I'm worried that do we get something could something go wrong? Could something delay this? If it did, we know what would happen to ETH. It's probably going to drop it down to anywhere in the range of 28 to 2,600 if we saw a major blip in this one, because Pectra went through fairly smooth. So this would be a bad hit if Fusaka doesn't come clean today. We're going to be watching it very closely. Listen, we were on last week. We called silver. We hit it just the way we drew it up. And of course, now silver is flying, and there are many reasons why. Many people are looking at what's happening with the CME, what we've saw with silver in terms of a squeeze right now on supply shock. But if you look at the chart back on silver, where are you, first of all, where are you anticipating silver is going to go from here?
Yeah, it's always an interesting time when you're in price discovery, of course, because it is just that, right? You're in uncharted territories. We were already there last time we spoke about it, where we breached into this region, and we were talking on as long as we were holding above 44, likely that we were going to go to 60. Now we pushed up to, it depends on what chart you're looking at here. This is about $59, but I do think that 60 is going to really offer up a little bit of a roadblock here. Okay, so we had a very similar thing to what we're even seeing in gold right now, actually, where we pushed up. You could almost, look at this as a little consolidation here. You broke out again, but $60 up here is a really big spot. So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually get a decent little cool down around here. And one thing that I'll be noting is this level right there, that back to 50 potentially. And where we are right now, if we were to either pull back from here or push up to 60, just kind of be aware that we could easily just kind of cool down again. Gold pocket region, I think that's like a 10, 12, 15%, about 13% cool down. It'll probably freak some people out, but it's still like in the grand scheme here, I think that we are still holding really strong above 44, and we're really in the good areas here. And to look for any type of new movements or anything like that, we can go ahead and highlight some of those real quick. So basically, line in the sand for any more upside is that $60 mark. Don't be afraid if we come back down to 50. It's totally normal things to see there. And I'm just going to take some more local price action, and let's just see where we're going to be looking for after that. And essentially we're looking at potentially 72 after 60. And I know that those to me, in the sense of like $60 to $72 doesn't sound like a lot, but in silver, I mean, that the asset class that is, it's extreme. It's extreme. Yeah. So again, I always like to remind people, though, at these times we are in brand, all-time highs. This is not talking to the person that's looking to buy silver. This is not the ideal areas to get in. You don't want to buy at all-time highs, but the person that's been invested for 20 years or years ago, or whatever the case is, from lower, be anticipating these moves. At 60 is a big, roadblock ahead. 50 between 60 and 50. It's totally fine. 44 is kind of the like lower end, the line in the sand, and then from there we have room to 72 if we continue from here. So that's how I'd be looking at it.
Well, a lot of people are still looking at gold here recently just because of the amount of liquidity that's been flushing into gold. Obviously, we've seen gold back up above 42. So this will be unique if we start to see gold moving in tandem, because there has been kind of a lockstep move to a certain extent between silver and gold. How that goes to the next level will be questioned going forward. Mm-hmm. Hey, guys, if you're not subscribed to Paul's channel, go over and jump on there right now. It's DataDash. You guys can jump in there, subscribe, follow him on X, which is that still DataDash Pro?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, DataDash Pro on X. And we're going to get into a couple more tokens here. One, of course, is the conversation we had in reference to SWI and Avalanche. And we were talking about this last week. And of course, guess what? SUI absolutely just went nuts and climbed the charts. They're holding number 19 position right now. Blew right by Hedera, blew right by Zcash, which is one of the things we talked about, and also Avalanche, now containing into a very commanding position for SUI in general. These were the tokens that were moving: SWI, Pengu, Link, Pepe, INA, and then of course Aave. So very interesting tokens right now. When you look at SWI right now, you feel, because it had pretty much bottomed out, and we were concerned, where would it get that retracement life? It appears that it got it on this most recent run. Where do you like SWI for now?
Yeah, so SWI, and it, when we're looking at what the recent like the 7-day percentage gains are, it's coming off of where we were the lowest also, right? So sure. Just a week ago we were trading like at 158, and then today it's 160. So yes, we got a nice burst from the low, which was like that 20 or 30% move, almost 40. But we're still kind of in that really, I don't want to call it a danger zone, but just kind of this little region that we were actually, again, looking at last time. So the big level for me, I'd like to see SUI get above. I mean, this is definitely at a major discount for me if I'm looking to scale into something for that longer, a longer term outlook. Then yes, after a huge decline like this, this is an area where I'm interested. I pointed out the importance of this one right here, which was at the time like a 50% drop from last week, right? Which we got pretty close, almost down to it, about almost 14, 15% off of it. But Yeah, that this level still has my attention. I'm not going to lie, and it could be one of those times. And the only reason, and complete fundamentals aside, this is just technically speaking on
Sure.
statistics that back it up, volume, things that just they're just really stacked there. So we might not get to it, but if we did, this is where I'd definitely be interested. Again, that would be another 50% drop, so we may not see it. But flipping this 171, which is where we can see right now where we're hitting our head on yet again. Is crucial, I think, for any type of upside here. And then from there, though, we have really decent upside potential. I mean, I could mark out a ton of things from here, but just to keep it more, modest, I guess, just back up towards this region, range highs for one, back to $4. But we have another, it's just, we're always seeking out these volume levels, basically. Mm-hmm. So we just flip that one, and more than likely, we're going to head back up to that 480 region. Again, just while we're below this, just got to be cautionary that 83 is on the table, but it's not a guarantee by any means. But yeah, Sui not doing bad. I would say from last week, it's relatively still in the same spot, give or take. It just has had a decent push off the low put in since we last spoke, for sure. But I think it's kind of in the same position. I think 171. I mean, we flipped that. I mean, then the gates were open, and again, we are at a huge discount. So.
Yeah, a huge discount. If you hit that 171 mark, I think you have to send it at that point. We're going to see some pretty big deals happening with Sui. Listen, I think where it comes from is possibly coming out of the liquidity we've seen coming out of Zcash. Remember, we had the privacy token boom. This is just the 1 month chart. What you're looking at in terms of market cap. Look at the fall off right here, and this, of course, has gone from, what was that high? Let me go up to that tip right there. It was about 11 billion.
750-ish.
Yeah. 11. Well, I was looking at market cap, 11 billion-ish, and it's now cut in half. We're down at 5.8. So a lot of that liquidity we felt was going to continue to pour into Avalanche, Sui, some of these key blue chippers, and it appears that Sui was the one that benefited the most from some of that adjustment going forward. I want to play a clip for you real quick, because we don't often talk about Cardano on this show, but it's not that we don't want to. It's just that, there's never news, but we have some news.
Right.
And that is Charles Hoskinson came out on a clip. Let me play this for you, and then we'll chart it, okay? Take a look.
You've asked for unity. You've asked for growth. You've asked for leadership. And ultimately, you've asked for a compelling reason why people should choose Cardano over Ethereum and Solana. What is growth look like for Cardano? You kind of have three metrics: MAU, transactions per day, and you have TVL. One is we're missing the commercially critical infrastructure to even begin having the conversation about growth. Then you have a list of about 10 to 15 dApps, showcases of the Cardano DeFi ecosystem. Well, those dApps, what do we know about them? They're underfunded, they're understaffed, they don't have a lot of transaction volume, they don't have a lot of users, and they don't have a lot of TVL. And by profitability, we also mean their ability to list their tokens. And you need to also solve UI UX and get that where it needs to be. Unless we have perfection, we can't do anything. In which case, none of this makes sense. None of this makes any sense at all. We should just pack up shop and go home. We have to figure this out in 2026.
All right, so there's Charles kind of coming to the realization that there's a lot of problems. But if you look at, this is still a top 10 token. This is number 10 sitting on the market cap. It should be... It should be getting more respect, I think, if you look at what's been going on. And I think the scenario that plays out here, what happens to Cardano going into 2026? What would you look at when you look at this chart right now? Is it worth it jumping into ADA?
So we discuss a lot of times these coins that look dead, right? And it's like when you're diversifying to some degree, at least for myself, I get into the things that, a few things that have momentum because they're going to keep going at times, like, a little bit of the newer projects. Right now, it's like the privacy's got the momentum going. Things like Cardano, things like these original coins like Litecoin and all these dinosaur coins everybody looks back to just seem dead. But when you look at the chart and in the sense of like really dissecting it a little bit, this to me like just kind of reflects almost a similar outlook as XRP did for the longest time. Again, like that's just like the best comparison sometimes when you have it. But you have this huge drawdown here, and I have a few levels marked, and I'll kind of highlight those. But you had some dead space here, a little burst, a pullback here. Note that it's higher low here. push-ups again. We actually front ran this major 382 that I'm always on about here. Like a lot of times we see just big bursts and it's just a snap back to the 382, even if it gives it all the way back up. We see that all the time. So when you're trading at these lows, I look for that kind of a move. But anyways, we did pretty much just so that, and then we're coming back down again. And so far we're still kind of holding these lows at a higher point here. So you got a little odd elongated uptrend occurring here at the bottom here. It seems like sentiment and the fundamentals are kind of meh. But when you have something like this, it only takes like one news catalyst to really spark a move here. And the only thing about Cardano currently, as far as any more downside that makes me a little nervous, is similar to actually, never mind. We already tapped it. I was gonna say similar to the like SUI one, that we have those really big levels. These aren't as vital as like the SUI chart has. So yeah, realistically, I mean, Cardano has potential here to really get a nice move up, similar to Avalanche. We keep talking on that one as well, where it's like got almost the same exact setup. And again, it's like, not even to get into new all-time highs and price discovery, just for what's known as price recovery, just to come back into these areas again. Now, we did front run this level. So to me, it does give us, a little bit of not necessarily hope, but it's a little bit more likely that we do come back and actually meet that at some point. Yeah, I think that Cardano has potential here. It's just, it's in that boring phase that we all are so
it has,
well known at this point.
It definitely does have a community behind it, so that could be one of the catalysts that kind of moves it. I still wonder, though, the number 10 spot, you look at it, it's holding at about 15 billion in terms of market cap. If you look underneath that, hype might be close. I mean, it's at, closing in on 12 billion. Chainlink is in there at almost a little over 10 billion right now. Then you kind of scan down. I don't know if I would put anything, maybe Litecoin, I wouldn't put that on a major growth, but SWI could be in there too. Which one would you say could take the number 10 coveted spot in this next run? Do you think it could be a Hyperliquid, or do you feel like could be, maybe a token isn't even on here yet? Maybe Polymarket if they go and list a token.
could be. I was actually just looking at Chainlink today, and I mean, Chainlink, if we don't see Cardano, hold through and just kind of see it coast down, I mean, I think Chainlink probably would be a good contender, just in that really close knit group there. Oddly enough, I don't, again, we'd need a lot of ground to get recovered here, but oddly enough, Litecoin actually has a really interesting, not terrible looking chart. But again, it's just something that, we could look at everything right now and say, make a case for why it's we could put some risk on and all that stuff here.
All right, let's go to a couple other points I want to hit on. This, of course, is Uniswap. Uniswap just unlocked a bunch of stuff. One, of course, is this partnership here with Revolut. This is a big deal because it's going to open up a lot of things around banks within Europe. Remember Revolut, if you don't know who they are, this is basically the Gen Z Bank of America of Europe. Think of it that way. Very large, very active, and very forward-thinking. Now partnering in here with Uniswap. Not only that, Uniswap also announced the possibility of IPO ignition and how it could happen within the Uniswap model. If you just look at going into an auction directly, this is a good example. Fully transparent. This could literally get maybe adopted by something like a Robinhood. I mean, we could see a complete reformat of how IPOs are done in the future, and Uniswap could be the center of this. If you look at Uniswap right now, because it's very depressed as a token, is this a good time to get into it?
Yeah, again, for my personal strategy, I look for these ones that are kind of dead, and I reference again that CRO type of pump, the XRP types of pumps, what we could see out of Cardano, what we could see out of Avalanche, and Uniswap has on a technical side before any of those fundamentals. And it's another good example of how we have all this good news, and it doesn't seem to be injecting into the correlating to the price action just quite yet. But a lot of times those things are they're delayed essentially, or when we get that price action to come in, obviously it's like, oh, okay, well, we had all these these news bursts and whatever. So I think that we're at a place now where if we are going to see anything out of Uniswap, it's going to be hard and fast, and because we're just pent up, ready to spring. It is at the lows. Again, this is zoomed out on a daily time frame. I highlight this really big range that we're trading in at the bottom here, and this will zoom out even more, right? So, I mean, look at where we've been. This is very much on the floor, and the opportunity is there. And I think that I can't remember if we discussed this recently or not. I was highlighting some of these levels up here that, again, I'm not married to saying that that's, if we're just going to go straight to those, but when you're looking at anything that is like something that's at all-time highs, or when people start chasing things like a Zcash after like several 100% moves, it's these ones that I tend to look for. And obviously we kind of pair it up with the fundamentals too, where we could see some, it's definitely a time to put on some risk if you're looking into something like this. And I guess is the easy answer to say yes. Right. I think that this is an area where we could put it on, and we do have some potential upside here.
Okay. Well, one last point on Uniswap, and then we'll end it here, is they, of course, just went through, the unification proposal, absolute slam dunk. It's going to happen. Now they're, even giving a reward to try to debug it. What that simply means, for those of you who don't know about Uniswap, this is where they're taking all the fees and they're going to re-inject those back into the holders and start to pay rewards. So that's a big deal, because that has never been done on this chain before. So a pretty big move on Uniswap. We're going to get and cover a lot more next week. There's, of course, the FOMC meeting. We'll listen to what Chair Powell says. That's going to have a big impact, I think, on the markets, especially as we go into quantitative easing. There's a lot to unwrap here over the next few months. So, Paul, thanks so much for coming in today. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, Paul. Thank you. See you next time.
All right, you guys know what to do. Make sure and get in on a private member group. That's very easy to do. It's absolutely free. You can get free research, insights, more. I do an email drop each week. We just did a Bitcoin and digital assets lending guide, how to strategize around all of that. You can, of course, get that by just hitting that link down below. Follow me on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on The Paul Barron Show.